Hey, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining me. And we have another outstanding program today. My guest holds degrees from Columbia University and Liberty University Baptist Theological Seminary. He specializes in prophecy, discernment, and apologetics. He leads Tip of the Spear Ministries and many other things I could say about him. And please welcome Brandon Holthaus. Brandon, thank you for joining me.
Tom, thanks for having me. Don't hold my Columbia degree against me.
I'm sorry about that. I mean, this is before they were totally woke. And,
well, they were woke back then anyway.
Well, just insane. I forgot it was Columbia that you were at. And
yeah, they were crazy back then anyway. So
they were. There's some things that came from Columbia back in the 1970s that I quoted recently. You look, you go, but these Ivy League colleges, they just went insane a long time ago, way off the charts. So
yes, they did.
We won't hold it against you. There's still people that are actually speaking the truth, but you know the media loves to just they're just pushing this agenda along with these students. It's terrible.
Yeah, you know, the thing that shocks me about the students, Tom, is how uneducated they are. So the myth that you go to an Ivy League institution and become educated, that's gone now. They're having these kids do, women's studies, gender studies, along with the basket weaving classes they're taking, because the problem is that they have allowed the kids to come in the universities without SATs or grade point averages because of diversity, equity, inclusion. So you have a bunch of kids there that actually don't belong there, and they actually can't do the coursework. So you know what's happened, Tom? Like, for instance, Yale and these Ivy Leagues, an 80% now is an A. So,
wow.
So crazy stuff has happened in our university. So, now you get a kid coming from Stanford or Berkeley or Harvard or whatever. Do not expect intelligence. Do not expect that because of the DEI.
Wow. And then these people become doctors and they become lawyers. And no wonder why we need AI. We need AI doctors and lawyers because of what's coming out of these colleges.
Yeah, they're dumber than a box of rocks. There's no history whatsoever. How would you like to have one of those guys working on the Boeing 747, right?
Yeah, which they have been. And how would you like to have one of them flying the Boeing 747?
Right, exactly. That's insane. This is the world.
Is absolutely insane. Dumber than a box of rocks would be a great way of putting it, just as you said. So,
well, you saw them when they interviewed these kids. They said, "What are you protesting?" These idiots from Columbia protesting at NYU, and the girl didn't even know what she was protesting. Tom.
Well, I don't know. What are we doing here? Well, let's just say it anyways. I showed a video a few weeks ago, and you can't make this up. It was Harvard graduates. It was so embarrassing. They're all going for their doctorate. They did their own rap song. It was so ridiculous. I don't know if you saw that. You're thinking, you can't make this stuff up. It was just insane. That's what I want my doctor to do. I want them to be able to perform rap. I don't care about being able to perform surgery or anything like that.
Right.
Make sure that you can do a really pathetic, stupid rap song, because that's what it was. What an embarrassment.
It's the whole medical community. And that's serious, man, because you're going to go to a doctor that didn't necessarily qualify to go to med school. And because he's a DEI graduate or a higher, I'm going to trust this guy when I have cancer or open heart surgery. I mean, it gets pretty serious, Tom. And again, this is being driven by this DEI. But again, the DEI is a religion. And I think that's what everyone needs to realize is it's a promotion of the whore of Babylon, because it's antithetical to the biblical notion of meritocracy, that whatever your hand finds to do with all your might, and a worker will be seen by a king, according to the Proverbs. And it's the idea that the Bible, even though salvation is a free gift and we don't merit it, our sanctification, our rewards are based on meritocracy, by the way. And the way someone establishes himself in life is meritocracy. That's why it says, a king will notice someone's hands that do good work, to paraphrase the Proverbs. And so we have went away from a biblical system of meritocracy to a more Babylonian if you want to call it, we promote you based on your skin color. We promote you based on your group affiliation, your sexual identity, or your gender identity. And that's so antithetical. And what's going to come from that? Chaos, absolute chaos.
Absolute chaos. You mentioned the Babylonian way. Well, at least in Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar had enough brains to promote Daniel, who was Jewish and had a brain, so he promoted him up the chain.
Exactly.
Here in America, we don't have any of that. I can't help but think, you mentioned it being a religion. In Revelation chapter 17, we have the 10 kings who, after they use the whore to get their power and establish the Antichrist, what do they do with her? They burn her with fire. They destroy her. Why? Because they know that this religious system that gave them their power is a lie, it's a fake, it's a fraud, and that's why it's described a whore also, because they use it to get what they want, and then they get rid of it. And that's what they all these people who are at the top, I watched Tedros. I know this isn't any part of our conversation we're supposed to have, but I watched Tedros the other day, and he's really upset about the WHO meeting, right? Because they didn't get the power that they wanted to, right? Didn't get passed. He's really upset about it. And the fact is, these guys know their climate laws are lies. They know this gender stuff is a lie. It's all about power and control. So in Revelation 17, when the 10 kings get their power, guess what? They do away with these false systems, and the people who are believing them, they're going to be destroyed by them. They're idiots and they're morons that they would actually, they're so stupid they would believe it. I think that's why the powers that be will eliminate them, because they're thinking we can't have people this stupid on our planet.
Good point. And you talk about the stratification of society, because you're right at the top, that, like the 10 kings, like you're mentioning, they don't believe in the whore. They don't believe in the values of the whore. This is ridiculous. It's kind of what Constantine did early on in the Pergamum era of the church age, when Constantine married the church or Christianity or Christendom with the Roman Empire. Constantine was pretty smart, and I think the 10 kings are this way as well, that, look, you have to glue people together. And here's an interesting point. I was listening to Dr. Victor Davis Hanson on this, and let me see if I can remember it. Diversity, they'll say, is strength, right? That's the mantra out of the DEI. Diversity is strength. And that's actually wrong. Diversity is only strengthened if you have unified principles and values that bring the diversity together, a la the melting pot of the United States, right? When people came here, they came from different backgrounds and places, and they say, wait a second, we're coming here, we're going to make where we come from second and Americans first, or Christianity first. This is our values here. And what's happened is that has actually reversed itself on purpose to where they say diversity is strength. But no, diversity without a unifying principle creates chaos. It creates tribalism, which is exactly what they want. So now with the DEI, it is the perfect storm to create chaos or division, which is exactly, Tom, if you go to the top levels, what the elite want, that's what they want. They want society that's not unified, because then it's easier to manipulate. And then, of course, they don't want national boundaries, obviously, right? And so you create tribalism instead. And really, it's reversing what God did when he scattered the people from the Tower of Babel. They're actually reversing that and bringing it all under one banner through tribalism, and not, and the elimination of patriotism and national sovereignty. And I wish people would see more of this, but unfortunately, too many people, even the politicians, are blind to this. But I guess it's like what you say, you have to know Scripture to see that what Constantine did in the past and then what's happening now is the same thing. You have to have some type of unifying power, but but what you have to do is eliminate the Christian Judeo unifying power, and then give it another set of morality that they can unify around, which is now diversity, equity, inclusion, which is nothing but sexuality, racial identity, and gender. That's the new unifying principle. And that really is a new religion, if that makes sense. So you have to get rid of the old religion first and then bring in the new one under a new set of unifying principles, if that makes sense.
Totally makes sense. That's exactly what is happening, hence the attacks on Christianity. They'll get their wish at the time of the rapture, and it's going to make things speed up tremendously. Right now, we are the restraining force that God is using to hold this nonsense back. You know, you mentioned Victor Davis Hanson. I love watching him. For anybody who doesn't connect with him, just search for him on YouTube or Google. You will absolutely love the things that he has to share. And, you know, you mentioned Tower of Babel. The promise of Nimrod was, hey, don't scatter, just like you said. Don't be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Stay here, and I will be your protector. In case there's judgment again, we'll build a tower above the judgment of God. And this is what the powers that be are promising. Just like you said, they'll protect from any kind of judgment if there's a God in heaven, which I think they actually know there's a God in heaven. But they're trying to build their utopian kingdom and think they're going to stop him. And it ain't going to work, but
no,
man.
But think about this, Tom. If anyone just reads the Tower of Babel story in Genesis, Nimrod was smart enough to use a fear factor, and the fear factor was this: lest we be scattered. And I was reading some ancient historians that commented, like Josephus, that was commenting on this passage. And okay, so what was this fear factor? Lest we be scattered. Mm-hmm. Well, the fear factor was if we're scattered like he wants us to do, like the God of heaven told us to scatter, be fruitful, and multiply, we're vulnerable. We're going to be attacked by wild animals. There'll be marauding people that will destroy us. And so, guys, don't spread out because God that will kill us. That will endanger us. And so we need to unify and come together to protect ourselves. So it's funny, Tom, that if you go to that the core issue was, he motivated them to clump up together through fear.
Fear, yeah.
Fear. The fear is the issue, and that's what they're doing. So right now, this morning, what I heard, another fear factor is the EU passed this ESG thing, and basically saying that we're not going to do business with you unless you practice ESG, and that goes for American companies as well. Mm. And so ESG is a part of this religion, this green religion, and it has the DEI in it and all that other stuff. And so now what's happening is this religion is being forced on the corporate world. Yeah. So they're telling every American business, we will not do business with you in Europe if you do not promote ESG. Mm. So it's not a legal thing they're putting on our businesses, but they're saying if you want to do business in the global market, you will do this. Yep. And unfortunately, Tom, what that brings then is it affects us as the consumer as well. Because there's your energy issues, your DEI scores, transgender, all that stuff's all encompassed in the ESG score. So they're pushing this religion. There's no doubt about it. And if people think, well, that's going away, all they have to, look, they might go away, do away with the name, but they'll change the name to something else. But it's not going away. It's really the whore of Babylon. No,
it's not. ESG, for all of our viewers, in case you don't know what it stands for, it's environmental, societal, and governance. And environmental, obviously, climate lies. Societal, it's all the DEI. Governance is the control. And yeah, absolutely. As Larry Fink and BlackRock, Vanguard, as they force the ESG standards, there's nothing you can do about it because all the big business, in order to be able to continue to operate and have their funding and so forth, they're going to have to comply. And hence, it will come down and it's going to affect us. And eventually, it's going to affect our driving, where we can drive. It's going to affect shopping. We solved that, which I believe is what made Tedros really mad, that he didn't get his way. Fear is the product that they are marketing. And I find this interesting also, Brandon, because, we're both from California. Yeah. So what I look at Nimrod, again, this wasn't going to be any part of our conversation, everyone, but that's okay. You look at Nimrod and what's he doing? He had his own concern. If they scatter, I'll lose the power of my cabal. Sure. I won't have it. Here in California, I mean, we keep hearing talk out of Sacramento. Well, if they leave California, let's tax them. Why? because they're losing their power that they're created within their cabal. And this is what the globalists, it's the same thing. We got to control the masses. It's about power, and it's worse than a drug. It's everything that drives these people, and they hate every one of us. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let me add to this, since we're talking about Babylon, because this is fascinating. I love talking about Babylon because it's so relevant to what's happening today. They're reforming the tower, really.
Yeah,
so
they are.
If you study the Tower of Babel and you look at some of the aspects of what they're doing on the top of the tower, let us make a tower unto the heavens. Obviously, they were worshiping the fallen angels and demigods or whatever. They were also creating portals on the top of these ziggurats. Really is the pyramid shape, right? Which is a counterfeit to the mountain of God that we see in Revelation. That the New Jerusalem sits on the mountain. I saw a great and high mountain. So this is where Mountain Olympus comes from and all this other thing. So you see this ziggurat as a formation of a counterfeit mountain, okay? Now, when I studied this on these ancient commentators on it, not only were they creating a portal to the spiritual realm and to interface with the spiritual realm, okay? But what I noticed on some of the commentators is the fact that it was high gave Nimrod the ability to look out over everybody and see everybody. So if they were all clumped up in Babylon or whatever, he could see them from on high. And then then one of the guys I was reading said this is where the concept of the all-seeing eye of Satan comes from, that I'm above everything and I can see everything. And it's a counterfeit of the omniscience of God that Satan has to do. He has to counterfeit. Well, physically, the only way a Nimrod guy, like an Antichrist type guy, can see everybody, he's got to be on the top to see everybody. Okay, so then if you bridge this over now, you don't need a guy standing on top of a ziggurat watching all the populace. All you need is technology to be able to see everybody and see what everyone's doing. And I thought, there's the bridge. That's the connection. So with technology, so on top of, this is what these guys want, is the technology to be able to watch everybody in what they do, and not from a perch, but from a technological standpoint, which is a counterfeit to the God's omniscience. And I thought, oh my goodness, here we are again. It's the same story, but just with technology. And since you mentioned ESG, last week, what came out is this new buzzword called One Health, Tom. It's called One Health. So Tedros didn't get his dream of America signing over its sovereignty to the World Health Organization. But what they're pushing now, Tom, is this One Health. And this is what they say, that our health, yours and mine, our health is connected to the planet's health.
It's hilarious.
Right, but it's so they're going to monitor us, our health, and that's going to go into how much energy you and I are using, how much carbon you and I are spitting out, ESG score, that's all there. And the fact that they said, we have to reduce the human population because we are a cancer to society, to Mother Earth and Gaia. And so we need to reduce the population in a peaceful way from 8 billion to 2 billion. And hopefully we can do this in a peaceful way. What? What are you talking about in a peaceful way? What does that mean? That means the death of 6 billion people? How are you going to accomplish that in a peaceful way? I don't know. Yeah. Maybe I don't know. They have something dreamed up, but these people are killers. They're absolutely killers, man.
Yes, they are. So the Club of Rome had that book in 1991. And I have the quote. I wish I could find it right now for everybody to read it. And I know you've seen it. And in their book, they said, hey, we have a way we can handle the problem with all the masses of people that we don't like. And they said, pollution is a problem. And and people create pollution, therefore people are the problem.
Yeah.
And therefore, what we'll do is we will make man the enemy and blame man. I have the exact quote, and blame man for the problems that are out there, and hence we can control the masses through all of our climate nonsense. I wish I could read the exact quote, but It's in their book, Club of Rome, 1991. And humanity, therefore, is the enemy. That's is exactly what they say. Human beings are the enemy.
So check this out. So last week I played a clip on one of my prophecy updates, Tom. A guy from the Club of Rome. He's an older man now. He was a young guy in the 70s. And I have him stating, the same mantra from the 70s that we got to decrease the population. But one of the things that he said was interesting. And this goes to Bible prophecy. So anyone that understands Bible prophecy, you know where this guy's talking about. He goes, look, we got one of two things we're going to do. He says, first of all, if we want to give health to the planet, we got to reduce the population. And that's going to be difficult. We got to do it fast. And, he didn't explain how he's going to reduce the population, but he says that's the way to bring health to the planet. Then he gave the opposite scenario of, okay, if we're not basically going to kill these people. Now, he didn't come out and say that, but he said the other plan is this. If we're going to allow this many people to live on the planet, which is causing health problems to the planet, then the only other solution we have is to drastically reduce their economics to where their economics and energy output are severely reduced in order, if we're going to let all these people live, and that's the only other alternative we have other than killing people, is we reduce their economics, reduce their carbon output, reduce everything. And I thought immediately, I said, that's one of the sealed judgments. Right? A quart of wheat for a day's wages. So he said, basically, we'll make everyone poor instead to save the planet. I said, there you go.
Totally.
That's
so it was in the, I think it was in the 1930s, funded by Rockefellers. It was a study from Harvard called the Harvard Economic Project. Mm-hmm. And what they concluded was exactly what you just said. And it was in a document called, I think, Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars. And it was a war, you probably read it, a war against the masses of the people. It said not just America, but the entire world. And it was how to adjust the economy. And they figured out how to, and what's happening right now with inflation is fulfilling the promise of Klaus Schwab. By 2030, you'll have nothing and like it.
Exactly.
You'll own nothing and like it. And as we look at it, more and more people can't afford their home anymore. We're going to end up with universal basic income in all these buildings, all these apartments that are being built all over the country while the population is decreasing apart from immigration. Kind of interesting dynamics, at least in California. And then we see is, why are they building all these things? Well, this is their plan. And they know they can destroy and manipulate the people by how they control the economy like a steering wheel. And this is this quote. I got it. It's from Club of Rome, 1991, the book, The First Global Revolution. And this is their own quote. In searching for a common enemy against who we can unite, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, and water shortages, famine, and the like would fit the bill. All these dangers are caused by human intervention. Therefore, it's only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. And the real enemy, therefore, is humanity itself. That's their exact quote. They're telling us what they are going to do. And that's what they're doing. We're living through it.
Yeah. So my thing is, and this is what I can't get over, I don't know if it's a spiritual law or what, man, but why does the enemy always tell you what they're going to do? I don't know if God makes Satan tell people what they're going to do, because Tom, they already say what they're going to do, and no one takes them seriously. No one believes that. Brandon, Tom, you guys, that's hyperbole. They don't really mean that. Klaus Schwab doesn't really mean that. Doesn't mean they're going to make us all poor. And there's like this, I don't know, normalcy bias that people have. They don't believe when they're actually told that this guy has said he's going to depopulate the planet, or he's going to reduce you. He's going to destroy the middle class to save the planet. And no one believes it. And unfortunately, Tom, the problem with no one believing what evil says is by the time it comes to you, it's too late. You can't recover. They've already done it. And now look what they have done. It's been decade after decade after decade of working on these plans. I mean, you talk about the Club of Rome. I mean, this goes back to the 70s. It goes back to after World War II, Tom. After World War II, the mindset was we need to divide the world into 10 global regions, right? And that was what they were thinking. I have a map that I got after World War II that shows the world divided up into 10 global regions. Okay, then the Club of Rome in the 70s comes out with the same type of map, 10 global regions. And then in 2009, the UN pushes a global regional map with 10 regions, global regions. And I'm sitting there scratching my head. Oh my goodness, they have been thinking about the 10 league confederation. That's Daniel's 10 toes, the 10 crowns or whatnot on the beast system. They have been planning this since at least after World War II, at least. And so now here we are. And I think, Tom, I hate to say it, a lot of what they're doing has been put into motion and we can't reverse it.
Oh,
there's no reverse. All you and I can do, and the Christians, is warn people that we're not getting this back.
Right. You look at. I know you have Alex Newman on not too long ago.
I did.
Alex is just absolutely brilliant in talking about the borders. He said it's intentional, and you look at it from the regions that the Bible describes. It makes sense. It's not about nationality anymore. Nations. It is about regions that their king, their leader oversees, and we aren't getting it back. Even if the borders were to close right now, there are Chinese nationals here. There's all kinds of operatives. We now know there's been reports over the last few weeks, finally, that the UN, there's actually UN troops that come across the border as immigrants, illegal immigrants. They're UN troops. And that's not a surprise to us. I mean, many of us have been sounding the alarm on what's really going on, but too many people are blind to it, the normalcy. How many people do we know? Maybe not personally, but we see them or we hear of them in the church and out of the church that think, well, this is just normal. No, it's not normal. It's anything but normal. What is normal about people still wearing masks walking around? What's normal about the insane stuff we see? Yeah.
Well, you mentioned this normalcy bias thing. I was listening one time to a lecture that Francis Schaeffer did, and this had to be in the late 60s and 70s at El Abri. And he was mentioning, he was kind of forecasting about America. And he said, there's two things that's going to put American Christians to sleep. And he mentioned the first one was affluence. Affluence will be America's downfall. And then the second thing he mentioned was personal peace. And what he meant by personal peace is what he says, in an affluent society, what ends up happening with somebody is that they have their little life around them and they have the way they want it to go. They have their dream life, whatever, and it's been given to them by the affluence. And what ends up happening is they end up put themselves into a bubble of not knowing what's going on in the world. They work, they come home, they want to sit at a Dodger game and drink a beer, and then they go to sleep. And every day is the same thing. And they're totally checked out because the affluence makes them that way. And he said that, and I've been looking at the society and said, that's interesting, because Ezekiel notes another interesting thing about Sodom and why Sodom went the way it did. And Ezekiel notes, I can't remember off the top of my head, but passage, but he was relating to Israel like yours, like Sodom. And then he says an interesting thing, the prophet Ezekiel. He says, Sodom had plenty of food, and too much leisure time. And I'm paraphrasing. And I read that and I'm like, whoa, too much food means I have an abundance. They had an abundance of food, which means they're wealthy. And then they had too much leisure time on their hands. Well, interesting enough, I've read Victor Davis Hanson's books. You mentioned that as a great historian. And what he notes, in every culture and civilization that dies, they have the combination of too much leisure time and too much affluence. And I said, oh my goodness, that's what's happening to America. That's what started the whole thing down the path. And I sat there and I think, well, we can't reverse it because, as Victor Davis Hanson in his new book points out, the end of civilization or something like that, or end of all things. When you go down that path, that civilization doesn't recover. It goes down the history dump like Greece did or Rome does. And I'm sitting here, and maybe this is because we're in prophecy. I am watching the United States and probably most of Western society now is going down the drain. And I think it has to prophetically. I wish it wouldn't. It's part of the bittersweet aspect of prophecy that I hate to look at this. But look, if we're going to go to a global government, the one nation that was standing in its way was the United States.
Yep.
And they've effectively done that. And think about this. Do we really believe getting someone else in the White House is going to stop what they're doing? I don't. I mean, it doesn't mean I'm not going to vote. It doesn't mean I pray and hope we get a good leader and to buy the church more time and give us the ability to do our work before the rapture. But I don't think getting another guy in the White House is actually going to reverse education. It's going to reverse the anti-Semitism. It's going to reverse, Hollywood or anything like that. I have no illusions that that's going to change. Yep. I think what I'm watching is the destruction of an entire civilization.
Yeah, we are living through the collapse of America. I know that's hard for people to hear, but when you look at it, when Jesus was here the first time, hey, the people, they were looking, Jesus, when they recognized, hey, he's not going to be the leader, someone like Judas, he's not going to be the leader to overthrow Rome, well, let's get rid of him. They didn't want somebody who came to save their souls.
Right.
Jesus saves souls, and we know exactly the way this is going to go based upon what the Bible says. And really, right now, it's about turning people to the Lord Jesus Christ is the most important thing.
It is.
And by the way, I got to ask you this. People, to get a hold of you, I know you have